Hello everyone and welcome back to the Football Insider channel. Today we are talking about my favourite thing, the relegation battle. It has been a few years since we've had a good tasty relegation battle, and we're going to look at in this video whether or not we're going to have an actual relegation battle this season. So we're going to look at all the teams that look like they are struggling after the first 4 games and assess who is having a bad start, who will be able to get out of that start, who have maybe had a good start and could fall into it. So we're going to talk about all that in this video. Please let me know who you think is going to go down the season in the comments below. Let's dive into it. So let's start with the newly promoted teams. Burnley, Leeds and Sunderland, they have all been pretty much top of everyone's list to go down this season, but already we can see that they look stronger than the previous newly promoted teams. Sunderland have 7 points. They've won 2 games already. Leeds have 4. Burnley have 3. And all 3 have won games. You know, last season we waited until October, I think, for any of the newly promoted teams to win a game. So now we sit here in September and we see 4 wins between the 3 of them. So that's really, really good. And I think all 3, there is a strong argument that all 3 could survive this season. Sunderland, they are the headline grabbers right now. They have had, admittedly, the easiest start of any of the newly promoted teams, but that comes with its own pressure. Sunderland had to win those early games against West Ham, against Brentford. They've obviously played Burnley. They did lose that one, but they got 6 points there, which is what they needed from their opening 3. They drew the weekend against Crystal Palace, a really impressive away point. And it feels like Sunderland have had a strong start this season, and it feels like people are looking at them and going, do you know what? Maybe this team is built a little bit differently than some of the other recently promoted teams. And I think Sunderland and their fans can feel pretty optimistic about the season ahead. Look, still be a hard slog for them, but they've had a good start, 7 points from their first 4 games. That is impressive. Burnley have had the most unforgiving fixture list so far out of the 3. They've had to play Spurs and Manchester United away, and they've also played Liverpool at home. They did win their one winnable game, which came against Sunderland. So they've got 3 points there, and that's probably at the start of the season when they were tallying up where they were going to pick points. They probably thought, we need 3 points from those first 4 games. And anyone who watched Burnley against Manchester United, they were very competitive. They were probably unfortunate to not come away with a point. Against Liverpool at the weekend, this past weekend, they played really, really well, deserving of a point, got a silly red card and then a silly penalty go against them. So Burnley will probably feel like they've really assimilated quite well in the Premier League, and they look built, in a sense, to defend in the Premier League and keep clean sheets, which is really what their aim is. I mean, they were so good in the Championship when it came to keeping clean sheets, and I think they're going to be able to copy over a lot of that defensive strength. So Burnley, there's plenty of reasons to be optimistic with them. Leeds are the one that I'm probably the most concerned about right now, and I think that is largely because they look so blunt in attack. They've scored 1 goal this season, which was a penalty, so no goals from open play. Haven't scored since the opening day against Everton, and in all the games I've seen them play this season, they've just looked toothless in attack. They are very good in the defensive third, very good in the middle third, gets to that final third, and they look poor. And they haven't invested enough in that final third, I think. I think they really could have done with adding in, you know, it's easier said than done, but maybe a couple of £20 million players into that area of the team to really give them a chance of scoring goals. Because right now, they are the team in the Premier League. I know we've got Aston Villa haven't scored a goal yet, but Leeds will probably be at the end of the season the lowest scorers in the league. And that means they're going to have to keep a lot of clean sheets to keep points this season. So of the 3 newly promoted teams, I think it's fair to say they've all got their strengths, they've all got their opportunities. Look, Leeds, if that attack does click for them, you know, Dominic Calvert-Lewin has scored goals in the Premier League. Nemecha looks like a good player. Okafor, he's just come in and he could be a big player for them. Willie Gnonto's a decent player. Dan James, can he find his feet in the Premier League? Jack Harrison has played in the Premier League before. So they do have parts there that could work in the Premier League, but you just are a little bit worried about where Leeds are. Burnley, defensively strong organisation, and I feel like they look better built for the Premier League than when they were last in there under Vincent Kompany. And Sunderland feel like a bit of a wild card, but it looks to me like they have built a team for the Premier League. Sunderland's recruitment, I think, of the 3 has been the best so far. Let's talk about, though, the other contenders to go down. So Wolves are currently bottom of the Premier League and are the only team without a point this season. Their manager at the weekend said that he was concerned, which is never good. And Opta currently gives them an above 50% chance of relegation. So of the established Premier League teams of the last few years, Wolves are definitely the one that looks in the most danger. They play Leeds coming up this weekend. It feels like that game is going to tell us a lot about both of them teams and whether or not, maybe the winner of that one can find a bit of form and go on, and maybe the loser will be really dragged in to the scrap. But Wolves, they look like a team that's in a speck of bother this season. They have sort of teetered with relegation in the last few years, and it feels like maybe this is the year where they go over the edge. But they are notoriously slow starters. They do often pick up as the season goes on. So definitely not writing Wolves off, but right now there's massive cause for concern there. Aston Villa, I don't really think Aston Villa are in relegation trouble, but they've had a woeful start the season. They played Sunderland away coming up this weekend, and it feels like if Sunderland were to win that game, that would really raise some alarm bells at Aston Villa and go, do you know what, we really need to start picking up this season. But they're the only team not to score a goal in the 92 of the football pyramid, or the Football League pyramid. They've got a lot of talent. It'll only be a matter of time before Villa really pick up and kick on. The question is if this slow start leads to maybe a change. Do they look at Unai Emery? I would suspect not, but those things can play, and you can have a disaster at the start of the season, which leads to other bad decisions happening. I don't think Villa will go down. Opta certainly doesn't think Villa have much chance of going down, but they're worth putting in there just because of how slow their start to the season has been. Opta give West Ham a 36.47% chance of relegation this season, and that's really concerning for them. They've lost 3 games in pretty poor manner. They lost 3-0 away at Sunderland. They got hammered against Chelsea at home. They got hammered this past weekend against Spurs at home. They did win that game at Nottingham Forest away, but there is an asterisk next to that because Forest were having all them issues with Nuno off the field and whatnot. West Ham have a strong squad though, and I'd say of the teams that have got high percentages like West Ham, they are the ones that are most likely to make a change and that change work. If they brought in a Sean Dyche, say, you would expect he'd be able to get a tune out of this West Ham team and get them enough points to get out of their position and their predicament right now. Graham Potter, it feels like he's losing a lot of the support in that West Ham fan base, and it feels like a matter of time before that sort of unhappy marriage comes to an end. I think a lot of West Ham's success this season depends on how long they keep Graham Potter in there and whether or not they want to go with him and really put their trust in him, or if they go, do you know what, we're going to make a change and try something totally different. It's going to be very interesting for them over the next few months to see what the club does. Next on the list is a bit of a surprise for me with Opta stats. Fulham come in with a 12.69% chance, and I just think Fulham with their manager and their squad, virtually no chance of them going down this season, so I'm not particularly worried about them. Manchester United are next on their 11.84% chance, and look, their form under Ruben Amorim is woeful. I think they're at roughly 1 point per game since it's been in. That's a large sample size. I think it's 31 Premier League games. They're at 1 point per game, and it's concerning for them because this is such a big sample size that they've struggled in the Premier League. They don't have Europe this season, which could benefit them, but when you watch Man United play, there are just red flags all over the place. I would admit they've had a difficult set of fixtures to sort of start the season, and it will improve when they come against some of the lower sides. But I certainly see, it's 11.84%. It's pretty high for a Manchester United team that has spent as much money as they have, but you would think that they would come good with the quality that they have. Nottingham Forest come next on the list, 11.74% chance of relegation, and I think that just comes from sacking Nuno, bringing in Ange. Postecoglou really struggled with Tottenham last season in the Premier League, and Forest have Europe as well, so the juggling act that Tottenham had last season was they went all in on the Europa League. The problem this season is Forest arguably have a worse team, and the relegation scrap is likely to be better this season. The teams at the bottom are likely to be better, which means that they can't really get away with essentially chucking the Premier League and going all in the Europa League. So I imagine that's why Forest are so high, but I would say that there's slim chance that Forest are really going to be in any trouble this season. Brentford are the only other team above 10%, and to be honest, it surprises me that they are where they are in terms of that percentage. I would have had Brentford being a much higher chance of going down. The change that they've had this summer, yes, they've picked up 4 home points this season. They've been poor on the road though, and I'm not sure on Brentford. It's the upheaval they've had, the bringing in of Keith Andrews, who's an inexperienced Premier League manager, and I would have a bit more of a concern for Brentford than the Opta Super Compute. So the odds this season, let's just go through them quickly. The current Opta favourites to go down are Burnley, then Wolves, then Sunderland. You've got Leeds, West Ham, Fulham, Man United, Forest and Brentford. So they're the ones that follow. Do you agree with that? I think it's quite interesting to see those teams are the ones that are listed in there. And I certainly think that, you know, Sunderland fans right now probably feel like they've got a good chance of staying up. And Wolves fans are probably very worried, you know, after their early start to the season. So my verdict on this, it's too early to really predict who's going to be in a relegation scrap. When we're at this stage of the season, if you win 3 out of 4 games, it totally takes you out of that situation. You know, if any of these teams, even Wolves, who are bottom of the league right now, were to win 3 of the next 4, you would probably go, oh, do you know what, they found their feet. So it's really, really early to predict it. But I do think that all these teams listed are the ones that are most likely to be in trouble this season. I don't think there's anyone outside of that who I'm particularly worried about. I mean, even Villa aren't in these odds. They are currently second bottom of the Premier League without scoring a goal. So I think it is really interesting. I think the fact that Sunderland are 7 ahead of Wolves, that really shows that we are going to be in for an interesting scrap. I think most people would have Sunderland being in trouble this season. 7 ahead of Wolves, though, that means Wolves have got to pick up a lot of points to catch up with Sunderland. So that is, you know, fascinating for me. I think my gut feeling is that we will see at least one of the newly promoted teams survive this season. I think from what we've seen so far, it's hard to say which is better positioned. Sunderland have clearly had a really hot start this season. I think Sunderland have got a pretty strong team. They've recruited really well. It's just a question of whether or not they've done too much in this window and maybe that upsetting things. But I'm really confident about Sunderland's chances this season. Burnley, I think, have impressed me. You know, they were the team that I had probably finishing bottom at the start of the season, but I certainly think now they are going to be able to pick up 30 to 40 points this season. I think they do look good. I think they look organised, and I think Scott Parker has maybe learned from his previous experiences. And I think Leeds, they are the big concern of the newly promoted teams right now. Their lack of goals, the fact that they chucked away a point of the weekend away at Fulham, that would have been a massive point for them to get that. And I'm just a little bit worried about where Leeds are right now. I just don't think they've done enough in that final third to give them a chance to score enough goals to stay up this season. But I'd be very intrigued to know what you think about the relegation scrap in the comments below. Please like and subscribe to the channel as well, and we'll catch you for another video very soon.